It's funny how routine can become a cage. Every night was the same. I'd show up at the 7-Eleven on South Lamar 10 minutes early, sign in on the greasy tablet, toss my hoodie on the hook, and try to make it through 8 hours without losing my patience or my mind. You tell yourself it's just temporary, just until the next paycheck, just until dad's stable, just until something better comes along. But weeks roll into months, and before you know it, you're not surviving. You're stuck. I'm Jordan, 27, didn't finish school. Didn't mean to stay in Austin this long, but then my mom died and my dad started falling apart. Parkinson's doesn't just steal movement, it steals dignity. And someone had to help him eat, bathe, pay bills. That someone turned out to be me. So I took night shifts because they paid 50 cents more per hour and gave me time to get dad to his appointments during the day. Brent, my manager, loved that. No kids, no morning obligations. You're dependable, Jordan, he'd say, right before sticking me with another closing shift and ducking out early. That Thursday in September started like the others. Sticky heat, dying summer, thunder rolling in from the west. Around 8:30 p.m., I biked in just as the clouds cracked open. I was soaked by the time I clocked in. At 9:15, a homeless guy came in for a hot dog and tried to pay in nickels. I gave it to him for free. At 10:04, a couple of drunk UT students giggled their way through 2 Slurpees and left the machine a mess. At 11:11, the lights flickered from the storm and the soda fridge made that low hum it does when it's about to die. I was restocking the energy drink cooler, crouched between Red Bulls and Monsters when the doors slammed open hard enough to shake the bell off its hook. 3 men, soaked, hooded, faces covered. One had a gun. No yelling, no demands, just the wet squeak of their sneakers and the soft clunk of the Glock pointing straight at my forehead. Time didn't just slow, it fractured. My mouth went dry. My ears filled with blood. My body acted before my brain. I dropped the tray and threw up my hands. Behind the counter, one of them tore into the register. Another said, "Open the safe." I told them I didn't know the code. I wasn't lying. Then the one with the gun stepped close. I could see the water, droplets running down his sleeves. I could smell sweat and mildew. He leaned in and whispered, "Jordan." My name. He said my name. That was worse than the gun. I didn't react. Not out of courage, but pure confusion. I was too stunned to even flinch. Before I could process it, they were gone. In and out like a gust of storm wind. Cash in their pockets. My name in their mouth. The doors banged shut behind them. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just stood there with my hands still up until the rain started hammering harder and snapped me out of it. I pressed the panic button under the counter. Then I finally let my legs give out. 18 minutes later, the cops showed up. 2 officers, male, white, mid-30s. One had a buzz cut, the other looked bored. Can you describe them? Not really. Hoods, masks. How many? 3. Weapons? 1 gun that I saw. Anything else? Pause. No. I didn't tell them about the whisper. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to say it out loud. Maybe I didn't want it to be real. Maybe I already knew it would lead nowhere good. They took the footage. The angle was bad. Just shadows, movement, grainy silhouettes. By 1 a.m. they were gone. By 1:30 Brent showed up. He was pissed. About the money, the mess, the police. Not about me. Not about the gun. "I'll get you extra hours next." "Week," he said, as if that fixed anything. I went home numb. My dad was asleep in his recliner, mouth open, breathing slow. I sat on the floor and stared at the wall until the sun started to rise. The whisper looped in my head over and over again. Jordan. Not yelled, not barked, just spoken, like someone saying hi. Who the hell knew me well enough to say my name but bad enough to put a gun in my face? I started looking through my phone contacts, Facebook, old texts, I hadn't dated anyone in a while. No one had a grudge, not that I knew of. A guy from high school once hit on me and I turned him down awkwardly at a Taco Bell, but that didn't feel like armed robbery motivation. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I started watching everyone who came into the store after that, listening to their voices, matching faces to eyes I'd seen behind the mask. Nothing fit. A week passed, then 2. The cops didn't follow up. Brent changed the shift schedule. Everyone pretended nothing happened. I didn't. My sleep got worse. I'd close my eyes and see the gun, or hear the whisper, or both. My hands started shaking when I handled cash. I jumped every time the doorbell chimed. I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. I had to be strong for my dad, and I sure as hell wasn't about to open up to Brent or the cops. Then came the envelope. It was a Thursday, mid-shift, light crowd. I'd just finished mopping up a spilled Slurpee when I noticed it on the counter. No one had seen who left it. The cameras didn't catch anything. It was tucked between a bag of chips and the lottery ticket stand. Just a plain white envelope with my name written in all caps. Tiny block letters. Black pen. Inside, 12 crumpled dollar bills. Exactly what was left in the second drawer they hadn't taken during the robbery. That was no coincidence. I stared at it for almost an hour. My heart didn't stop racing. I thought about turning it in. I thought about burning it. I thought about quitting on the spot, but I didn't. I put the envelope in my locker, said nothing. That night I couldn't sleep again. I lay awake wondering, was it guilt? Was it a warning? Was it someone watching me? Someone playing games? The worst part was knowing I'd never feel safe in that store again. After that, paranoia moved in like a roommate. I'd start recognizing patterns. Too many customers wearing hoodies, too many guys looking at me a little too long. I couldn't tell if I was being watched or if I was just breaking. One night I caught myself holding a box cutter tighter than I needed to. Just standing behind the counter, staring at a guy buying jerky, clenching my jaw like he was going to jump me. He didn't. He was just some dude. I started skipping meals. I started missing shifts. I told Brent my dad was getting worse, which was true, and that I needed time. He didn't argue. Maybe he noticed how pale I looked. Then one night I caught myself whispering Jordan in the mirror. Like if I could hear it enough, it would lose its power. It didn't. I didn't feel safe at work. I didn't feel safe at home. Even grocery stores made me nervous. Convenience stores? Forget it. I avoided them like fire. I started keeping a screwdriver in my bag, just in case. I tried therapy. Once. The clinic near Oltorf. The counselor had kind eyes, but she didn't get it. She said things like, "You're safe now," and "Your brain is still in survival mode." She meant well. But she didn't get it, because the worst part wasn't the robbery. It was the fact that, he knew me. And he was still out there. I quit for good 3 months after the robbery. Brent didn't seem surprised. My dad had taken a bad turn, fall risk, swallowing issues. I moved him to my cousin Maribel's place in El Paso. She had space. I didn't. I couch surfed in Dallas for a bit, picked up temp gigs, tried to forget. But some nights I still dream about the store, the rain, the whisper. I never found out who it was. I never will. But I did learn to stop waiting for closure. That part was key. Some things don't tie up clean. Some people hurt you and never say why. You have to live anyway. Now, I carry pepper spray. I don't work nights. I still don't love being in convenience stores. But I breathe easier. And when I see someone struggling through a night shift, I make eye contact. I smile. I ask how their shift's going, because I know what it's like to feel invisible, and I know what it's like when someone uses your name like a weapon. Sometimes the scariest monsters aren't strangers. They're familiar faces in the dark. Pay attention to your gut, protect your peace, and never ignore small warnings. The people who know you best can hurt you most. but they don't get to define who you become. They always say trust your gut. Thing is, when your brain's wired like mine, frayed from sleepless nights and half-finished psych textbooks, your gut starts arguing with itself. I'm Jordan, 29, Austin-born, part-time cashier. At the 7-Eleven on Airport BLVD. I dropped out of UT after 3 semesters in psychology. Couldn't afford the tuition, couldn't afford the burnout, and couldn't afford to keep pretending I wanted to spend my life fixing other people's minds when I couldn't make sense of my own. Now I mostly work nights, dodge questions from old classmates, and chip away at the debt I'm still drowning in. Tyler showed up in March, new hire, transferred from a location in Round Rock, early 20s maybe. Tall, lean, buzzed hair. Something about him was off. You know how some people just don't blink enough? That was Tyler. He spoke in the way some people drive. No wasted movements. Just yes, no, okay. I figured maybe he was quiet, introverted, maybe on the spectrum. I didn't want to judge. But then I noticed the staring. Girls would come in late, buying wine coolers or tampons or gas station sushi, and Tyler would freeze behind the counter, head tilted, eyes locked on them. Not flirtation, not even curiosity. Just this blank, unreadable focus, like a scientist observing a lab rat. I tried to let it go, told myself I was being overly analytical, like I used to be in psych labs. My insomnia makes things weird sometimes. You get paranoid, you get detached. But one night I saw him bend down to pick up a girl's dropped change. Close, way too close, and before he handed it back, he smelled it. Yeah, smelled it. That's when my gut stopped arguing and just started screaming. I didn't plan to catch him. Not really. I was just staying late again, couldn't sleep, didn't want to go home to an empty apartment and another 4 hours of ceiling staring. So I hung back after my shift to check inventory and let the storm outside pass. That's when I noticed the office door cracked open, faint light inside. Tyler was in there, alone. He had the security monitor paused on camera too, the inside view near the drinks. A girl, maybe 17, was frozen mid-step. Haley. I remembered her. She came in earlier for a vanilla Coke and gum. But Tyler wasn't just watching the tape. He was zooming in. First her face, then her legs, then the car outside she walked. Toward. Then he rewound. Watched her again. Played it slower. Eyes locked to the screen. Dead quiet. Breathing weird. It felt wrong, like walking in on someone's obsession. I backed out quietly, waited until he left the room to stock the freezer, then snapped a photo of the screen with my phone. I didn't know what to do. Not really. Wasn't sure if it was enough to prove anything, but it sure as hell made my skin crawl. I logged the timestamp, wrote it all down, sent a backup copy to my Gmail just in case. When I brought it to Marissa, our manager, the next day, she just exhaled hard and muttered, "Yeah, he gives me the creeps too." But that was it. No report, no escalation, just, I'll keep an eye on it. Corporate doesn't like drama, and besides, it's easier to ignore something than admit you should have seen it sooner. That weekend, Tyler stopped showing up, just like that. His phone? Disconnected. His emergency contact? Fake number. No Facebook, no Insta. Vanished like smoke and rain. And for a moment I thought, maybe it's over. Then Haley went missing. The news broke on a Tuesday. Haley R., 17, last seen March 9th at approximately 10:10 p.m. Footage showed her buying a Coke, smiling, alone. She walked out the front doors, and then, nothing. She didn't make it home. Her mom posted about it. Local stations picked it up. Posters were taped to poles. Bus stops, even the glass door at our 7-Eleven. That picture of her in the pink hoodie and messy ponytail. Always smiling. I watched the same camera feed I'd seen Tyler stare at. I knew the time. I remembered the night. She was real. Sweet, talked too fast, had chipped nails and a glittery phone case. She called me ma'am, which made me feel old. I liked her. When the police came for footage, I thought we'd finally get answers. But we didn't. Camera 3, the one outside, facing the lot. Blackout. 4 minutes gone. Exactly the window between Haley walking out and her car supposedly pulling out of frame. No glitch before, no glitch after. Just a sudden time jump. When I asked the tech guy from corporate if that ever happened before, he shrugged. Old system, could be anything. Power blip, loose wire. But it wasn't. I knew what I saw, and I knew who had access to that footage. Only 2 people, Marissa and Tyler. And Tyler had already disappeared. The next week was hell. The store stayed quiet, but the weight of that poster on the door made it feel like something was always watching. I couldn't stop seeing her face, couldn't stop imagining what happened in those 4 minutes. I went through the surveillance logs again, just me, alone in the office. Everything looked normal, until I reached the previous Tuesday. Same time Tyler had been watching Haley on tape. The playback file had been accessed twice, once at 11:49 p.m., once at 2:03 a.m., no record of who. And then I found something else, hidden in a folder labeled Temping Cam Cache. An export file, MP4, dated March 9th, titled, Watch Me Too. I didn't open it. I should have, but I couldn't. My hands started shaking. My stomach turned. I deleted it. That same night, I drove to the East Austin substation and filed an anonymous tip. Gave them the photo of Tyler watching the monitor. Told them everything I knew, or could prove. I never heard back. No callback. No follow-up. 2 months later, Haley was still missing, and Tyler was still a ghost. I quit the job in May. Marissa asked if I was burned out. I lied and said yes. She said she understood, offered me a reference. I didn't take it. I moved in with my sister out in Kyle, started driving Uber. It's not glamorous, but it keeps me moving, keeps me around people and cameras. I don't go into convenience stores much anymore, but when I do, I check the glass, I check reflections, I check who's behind me, and I always remember Haley's face. Sometimes I wonder if I could have done more, if I should have told the cops sooner. If catching him staring should have meant something louder, sharper, faster. But other times, I just remember how quiet predators can be, how they learn to blend, how they smile just enough, blink just enough, vanish just fast enough. I don't sleep much still. The pocket knife stays under my pillow. And every time I see a missing person's flyer curling in the sun, I make myself read the name. I make myself remember. Because forgetting feels like a second kind of violence. Sometimes your instincts are the loudest truth in the room. Don't wait for certainty to act. Evil doesn't always show its teeth. It watches, it waits, and it hides behind politeness. Speak early, trust your gut. And if something feels wrong, it probably is. I've worked morning shifts at the 7-Eleven on East New York Street for 9 months now. My alarm goes off at 4:30 a.m. I shower, make lunch for the kids, and start the walk to the store by 5:15. Aurora mornings are quiet, cold even in May, and usually smell like dew and asphalt. I always stop at the same intersection where the traffic light takes forever, stare at the glow of that cheap gas station sign, and wonder how I ended up here. Used to be a line cook. 6 years at a little diner down in Plano. We didn't serve anything fancy, but I made the best biscuits and gravy in the county. Pandemic shut us down. Lost my job, then my apartment, then nearly lost custody of my kids. My ex threatened full custody when I missed 2 months of child support, so I took whatever I could find. That's how I ended up pushing coffee and scratch-off tickets before the sun even rose. This particular morning, May 17th, Arian started like every other. Cold black coffee, flickering fluorescent lights, that humming from the fridge that always sounds like it's about to quit. Then, at 6:48 a.m., the garbage collector burst through the door. He was pale, sweaty, like he'd seen something that didn't belong in this world. He said, "Man, you gotta come outside, something's off real bad." He gagged. "It ain't like old meat or bad milk, this smells like something dead." I didn't want to deal with it. I barely had a full cup of caffeine in me. But I followed him out, still clutching my coffee, and that's when the smell hit me. Heavy, sweet and sour, rotting. Behind the dumpster, something buzzed like a plague. Flies. Dozens of them. Black dots in a frantic storm. The closer we got, the more the smell clawed into my nose. At first, I thought it was a dead dog or something. It was a big, lumpy roll of what looked like wet black tarp. Heavy duty, industrial stuff. But then I saw it. Fingers, 5 of them, grayish blue, stiff, just barely sticking out from the fold of plastic like they were trying to escape. The cops showed up 20 minutes later. By then, I'd already thrown up twice behind the ice freezer. They made everyone clear out, taped up the lot, started combing the back of the building like they were looking for clues on Mars. A few of the regulars stood across the street squinting at the flashing lights. One guy even filmed on his phone like this was entertainment. But me, I just stood there, staring at where I'd found him. The boy. They didn't know his name. No ID, no phone, no wallet. Nothing but a lanyard with a broken key on it. He looked about 17, skinny, brown hair, wore layers like someone who'd been couch hopping or sleeping rough. But I knew his face. He came in sometimes before school, or maybe it was after a night out. Hard to tell with kids these days. He always bought energy drinks, like the blue raspberry kind. Once tried to make small talk about a disposable camera he had around his neck. Asked if I liked photography. I just nodded and mumbled, too tired to chat. Now I'd give anything to go back and have that conversation. One of the detectives, a sharp-jawed woman named Serrano, pulled me aside later, asked what I remembered. I told her about the kid's visits, his camera, his smile, how he always looked tired but not sad. She asked, "Did you see anyone suspicious?" And all I could say was, "Everyone who comes in here looks tired, guilty or lost. That's why they come here." It wasn't the answer she wanted. They pulled security footage, days of it. Hours and hours, frame by frame. Nothing. Not a single shot of someone dumping the tarp. No trucks, no shadows. Just a jump in time. One frame, the lot was empty. Next frame, the tarp was there. It didn't make sense. The timestamp jumped. Ahead 3 minutes, like the system just blinked and missed it. They checked the street cams. Same thing. That part of the block went dark for 3 minutes. Serrano stared at the footage like it had personally insulted her. "Somebody didn't want this kid to be found," she said. And in my gut, I knew she was right. They shut the store down for 3 days, said it was for cleanup and trauma recovery. But the truth is, I think they just didn't want customers, associating burritos and Slurpees with death. I spent those days holed up in my apartment with the kids. Microwaved meals, cartoon reruns. My son asked why I wasn't working, and I said, "Daddy's just tired." But I wasn't tired. I was haunted. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that boy's hand, gray fingers twitching. I know it was. In my imagination, he'd been dead at least 4 or 5 days, maybe longer. But the image burned itself into my mind like a bad sunburn. Then the sound started. I live on the 3rd floor of a low-rent walk-up. Thin walls, cracked windows. That second night off, I woke up to the sound of something dragging. Not loud. Just slow, repetitive, like something heavy being pulled across concrete. I got up, looked out the window, and I swear, I saw a black tarp at the edge of the sidewalk, rolled up. Same kind of tarp. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. It was still there. I didn't go outside, didn't even move, just stared at it until sunrise. When the light came, it was gone. Maybe it wasn't real. Maybe I was sleep deprived. Stress can do that to you. But maybe it was a warning. No one claimed the boy. No name. No next of kin. No report of a missing kid matching his description. The paper ran a short blurb. Unidentified body found behind convenience store. That was it. 2 paragraphs, sandwiched between sports scores and a mattress sale ad. The detective called me once more, asking again if anything stood out in the footage. I told her the only thing that stood out was how clean it was. Too clean. Whoever did this knew what they were doing, knew how to erase time. I asked her what they'd do with the body. She said, if no one claims him, the county takes over. Anonymous burial. I couldn't stand the thought of that. A kid with dreams, with a camera, with a voice, just buried under a number. I scraped together what I could and called a local shelter, paid to have flowers placed wherever he ended up. Didn't tell anyone. It wasn't charity. It was guilt. Some nights I see his face in the back window of the store, just for a second. Just enough to make me freeze. Maybe it's just the reflection, or maybe the dead don't like being forgotten. Life keeps moving. The store reopened. I went back to work. Same coffee, same lottery machines, same people. But I walk a little slower now when I take the trash out. I listen harder, I smell the air. I still don't know who he was or why no one came looking, but I know this, he was there, under our feet, for days. And if the garbage guy hadn't said something, he might still be there now. I think about all the people we pass every day, homeless, tired, invisible, and how easy it is to stop seeing them. Until it's too late. The world is full of people slipping through the cracks. It's easy to forget what we don't take time to see. But sometimes just noticing someone, just listening, might be the only thing standing between them and being lost forever. There's a strange kind of peace that comes after 9 p.m. in Brooklyn. Not real silence, but a muted hum. Car engines in the distance, wind-shaking traffic signs, the soft beep of a checkout scanner. That's what I liked about the night shift. The world slows down, people move quieter, and most of them keep to themselves. I started working at the 7-Eleven on Atlantic Avenue in January. Needed the extra money after the divorce. My ex and I used to live a few blocks apart. Now we don't speak unless it's about our dog, who technically still lives with him. Working nights meant I didn't have to risk small talk or awkward grocery store run-ins. That Friday, February 16th, was cold. Not a nice kind of cold either. The dirty, slushy kind that seeps into your bones. We'd gotten hit with a wet snowstorm earlier that week, and the sidewalks were still covered in gray piles of melting muck. It was almost 10 o'clock. Business had slowed. Just a few teenagers in ski jackets grabbing candy, and 2 construction guys filling coffee cups and talking about union hours. I was behind the counter, wiping off the sticky drip trays by the cappuccino machine, when the parking lot lit up. 2 cars rolled in, headlights flashing through the glass, 1 black Honda, 1 dark red Charger. At first I didn't think anything of it. Happens all the time. Cars park, people argue, people leave. But then the driver's door of the Charger flew open, and everything changed. A man, tall, broad, probably 230 pounds, stepped out fast and yanked open the passenger door. Then he pulled a woman out by her hair, dragging her like she weighed nothing. She screamed, and high and sharp, and he slammed her against the car's side window. Hard enough that the glass flexed. You could see the oily outline of her body smear the glass. She crumpled to the ground, 1 leg twisted underneath her. Froze. My heart went wild. My fingers slipped off the phone. The receiver clattered to the ground. I picked it up and dialed 911, trying to speak through the shaking in my chest. Outside, no one helped her. Not the man and woman who got out of the other car, they just watched. He bent over her and said something low, meant only for her. I couldn't hear it through the glass, but I swear her body flinched when he whispered, like, whatever he said hurt more than the impact. Then he looked up, right at me, eyes locked. Through the front window of the store, over the rows of gum and breath mints and lottery tickets. He looked straight at me. And it wasn't like he was surprised. It was like he knew. Like he expected someone to be watching. And then, just like that, he turned and walked away. Calm, cold, like the kind of man who's done that before. He climbed back into the Charger. The other two people followed. Both cars peeled out of the lot, tires skidding through the slush. The woman, the one he'd thrown, didn't get up. But when the cops came, just 6 minutes later, she was gone. No blood trail, no footprints, just a single scarf, caught in the drain near the edge of the lot. I remember the officer crouching next to it. He wore blue gloves and used a pair of tongs to pick it up. It was dark burgundy with gold stitching near the hem. I took a photo before they bagged it, not knowing why. The footage didn't help. We reviewed the tapes, high-definition security cam right above the register, another over the lot, and a third behind the store. The cops squinted, rewound, slowed it down. And that's when I noticed something that made my skin crawl. You could see the man, his fury, his hands, his lips yelling, his shadow stretching across the asphalt. But there was no woman. He was screaming at nothing, dragging nothing, slamming nothing. Her outline wasn't on the footage. No blur, no distortion, no shape, not even a ghost of her form. Just him, attacking empty air. And still, I know what I saw. After that night, I couldn't sleep right. Not just because of what I saw, but because no one else seemed to believe it was real. The cops followed protocol, sure. They took my statement, bagged the scarf, made notes. But I could tell they were humoring me. Like I was another overworked clerk imagining shadows. They ran the license plates I gave, even though I admitted I barely caught the first 3 digits. Nothing matched. No matches to missing persons either. No one filed a report. No friends called in worried. No hospitals called back saying they treated someone with a busted lip or bruised ribs. She just vanished. But I kept thinking about that scarf. So I opened the photo again, zoomed in on the hem. The stitching was faint, but there was something written in cursive. Cynthia, or maybe Sierra. The thread was frayed where the name curved into the final letter. I printed the photo, taped it to the inside of my locker. Not to obsess, just to remind myself it was real, that she was real. The next few nights I started watching the lot differently, like it might give me clues. Sometimes cars parked out front and I'd tense up, heart pounding for no reason. But it was just teenagers, tired people, lonely people. Sometimes I'd hear a noise, that quick thud of metal on glass, and my knees would go weak. I even started seeing her in my dreams. She didn't speak, just stood at the edge of the lot, blood trickling down her cheek, eyes wide with the same question I couldn't answer. Why did no one stop him? Weeks passed. I stopped talking about her at work. People get weird when you bring up things that don't fit clean into logic, but I couldn't let it go. One night I stepped outside during a lull, no customers for 20 minutes. I lit a cigarette, even though I'd quit 3 years ago. The night was cold again, sky a flat gray with no stars. I looked at the spot where it happened. There was nothing there now, no blood, no scarf. But I still saw the moment play out in my head like it was projected onto the pavement. That's when I heard tires. Not just any tires, the kind of sharp squeal that jerks your spine straight. I turned. A red Charger rounded the corner and drove past windows tinted, lights off. I couldn't see the plates, couldn't see the driver, but I knew it was him. I ducked inside, heart in my throat. Watched from behind the counter. The car never circled back. Later that night, just before closing, I swore I saw movement on the camera feed. A flicker, like someone standing just outside the frame. But when I went to check the monitor again, it was gone. Some part of me believes she's still trying to be seen, trying to be remembered. I still work that shift. Still mop the floor, refill coffee cups, ring up gum and cigarettes. but I do it with different eyes now. Every customer could be hiding something. Every couple arguing outside could be a second away from violence. Every noise in the lot makes my heart race. I keep that photo of the scarf in my locker. It's faded now, coffee stain on one edge, but it's mine. It's proof. Proof that not everything, broken leaves, visible cracks. People have theories. A glitch in the camera, a hallucination. Maybe she was a runaway and someone helped her disappear. But I know what I saw. I saw pain. I saw fear. I saw a woman tossed like she was disposable. And maybe the world didn't catch her on film. Maybe the justice system won't ever know her name. But I do, and I won't forget her. The world doesn't always record the moments that matter. Sometimes being a witness means carrying a memory no one else believes. But silence makes room for repetition, so we speak. We remember, because every unseen victim deserves a witness. I've always believed the road tells the truth. Who's following you, who's running from something, who's lost and doesn't know it yet. That night I wasn't trying to go anywhere. I just wanted to escape my own skin. You see, ever since Sam left, no note, no fight, just vanished like smoke, I couldn't trust stillness. Silence made me itch. I'd pace, scroll through apps I didn't care about, flip the TV on for background noise. But none of it worked. The only thing that ever helped was driving. So I threw on a hoodie over my pajama top, pulled my hair into a bun, and slipped out the door at 1:02 a.m. The streets were dead quiet, the kind of eerie LA calm that only shows up when the city's sleeping and your heart won't let you. About 20 minutes into nowhere, I hit Pico and saw the glow of a 7-Eleven sign. The kind of place that's always open, always the same. I'd been there before. Familiar. Safe. I went in. 2 teenagers in sweats were buying energy drinks. The cashier barely looked up, eyes half closed, probably halfway through a night shift. En nap, I poured a coffee, grabbed a protein bar, the kind that's more sugar than substance, paid in crumpled cash, and headed out. And that's when I saw it. A black Chevy Suburban. Tinted windows, engine idling low. Now, I'm not one to panic. I live in LA. People sleep in their cars, text in their cars, cry in their cars. I didn't think much of it until I pulled out of the lot and turned onto Sepulveda, and it pulled out behind me. I noticed because it didn't hesitate, like it had been waiting. 3 turns later, left, right, left, it was still behind me. Close. Too close. It didn't flash its lights, it didn't pass, it didn't back off. It just followed. There's a specific kind of panic that builds slow. It starts in your gut, moves to your chest, and by the time it's in your throat, it's too late to pretend it's nothing. That's where I was. Somewhere between La Tijera and full-body dread. I turned into a random Shell station. Heart racing, parked, watched. The Suburban passed. I exhaled, trying to convince myself it was just coincidence. A weird blip in a city full of weird blips. I waited 5 full minutes, didn't see it come back. Got back on the road. 2 turns later, it was behind me again. Same black Suburban. No lights this time, no plate I could make out. That's when I knew this wasn't random. I tapped my phone, hands shaking, and dialed 911. I remember stammering. "Someone's following me," I said. "They've been on me for 10 minutes now, I don't know who they are." The dispatcher kept calm. She asked my name, where I was, and told me to drive to the nearest police station. I told her I was heading toward LAPD West Division. She told me to stay on the line and not stop the car unless I had to. I kept checking the rear view. The SUV kept its distance, but always in sight. When I slowed, it slowed. When I changed lanes, it mirrored me. There's something soul-crushing about being hunted without knowing why. No face, no motive. Just this enormous, faceless thing clinging to your tail. As I approached the station, I made the sharp right into the lot, tires squealing a bit because my nerves were fried. and parked right under the camera pole. That was the moment it peeled away. Fast. Gone. Inside the station, they sat me down and gave me a warm cup of water. I must have looked pale. I remember a female officer saying gently, "You did the right thing, you're safe now." I wasn't so sure. I told them everything, the SUV, the turns, the moment it turned invisible on me. They pulled the traffic cams. Nothing. Footage. From outside the 7-Eleven, just me walking to my car. "You're sure it was a Suburban?" the officer asked. "Maybe a trick of the light? A shadow?" I nearly snapped. It followed me across 2 miles. Ran a red light for me. I didn't imagine that. He nodded slowly, not saying anything, just tapping the edge of his tablet. I went home that night, and for the first time in over a year, I locked my bedroom door and kept every light on. I didn't drive the next night, or the one after. Something about knowing a machine that big can disappear from video, from records, does something to you. You start doubting your grip on the physical world. Even weeks later, I'd wake up at 2:30 a.m. and swear I heard tires crunching gravel outside. But when I looked, there was nothing. Like the fear never needed proof. It just needed to be felt. I started noticing patterns. Not with the SUV, I never saw it again, but with my own behavior. How I avoided left turns, how I parked near cameras, how I memorized license plates around me. I became hyper-aware, not paranoid, just tuned in. One night in March, I was working late and walked to my car around 11:45 p.m. A black SUV passed the lot slowly. Not a Suburban this time, a Tahoe. Still, my knees nearly gave out. I froze, keys tight in my grip. It didn't stop. Just rolled by. But it didn't matter. Because from that moment on, it wasn't just that SUV I feared. It was the idea of being watched without evidence, of something enormous locking its eyes on you and leaving no proof behind. The fear made me cautious, but caution is its own kind of survival. It's been months now. I moved, somewhere with more people, more lights. I haven't taken a night drive since. I still visit the 7-Eleven on West Pico sometimes, during daylight, when people are everywhere. The cashier still barely looks up. Some things don't change. But I do. I change every day. Now I double-check locks. I look behind me in mirrors longer than most people do. And I trust my gut, because that night my gut told me everything. I needed to know long before the SUV hit my rear view. They say fear is a weakness. I disagree. Fear kept me alive. When something feels wrong, trust your instincts, even if there's no camera, no proof, no witness. The most dangerous things often leave the fewest footprints. Listen to the silence, it knows more than you think. I started working the night shift at the 7-Eleven on West Charleston right after my sister moved away. I needed the money, but I also needed the distraction, something to keep me grounded after a messy breakup and too many nights of staring at ceilings. Vegas is strange after dark. There's a loneliness to the city when the strip lights fade into back streets and cheap motels. You meet people who don't belong to any timeline. They just float through. But Gabriel wasn't like that. He was solid, predictable. Every single night, 9:43 p.m., the bell would ding and in he came. Faded blue hoodie, same slow walk. Always bought a small bag of Lay's, a hot dog, no onions, and a Yoo-hoo. Paid in cash. Never said much. At first I figured he was just a guy stuck in some lonely routine. Vegas has a lot of them. But after about 3 weeks, curiosity got the better of me. He was outside, sitting on the curb like he always did. I watched him from behind the register for a few seconds, then stepped out with a half-lame excuse about cleaning the sidewalk. "Hey," I said. "You okay?" He didn't look at me right away. When he did, it was like pulling someone out of a memory. His face, pale, tired, sunken, broke into a kind of sad smile. Every time I eat here, he said quietly. She comes back to me. That made me pause. She? He didn't answer, just pulled something from the pocket of his hoodie. A small, torn photo. I leaned closer. A little girl, about 6, standing in front of the store, right in front of where the bike rack still sits. I didn't know what to say. He didn't offer anything else. But when I went back inside, I stood by the coffee machine staring at the corner. Something about the way he said it, she comes back to me, wouldn't leave my head. 2 nights later, Gabriel showed up. Again, same time, same snack, same stare. I started paying closer attention. After he sat outside, I noticed the lights above the coffee station flicker slightly. At first, I figured it was a wiring thing. Old stores always have quirks. But when it happened the next 3 nights in a row, I started to feel weird about it, especially because no one else seemed to see it. My coworker Liam, who worked the register with me on weekends, said he didn't notice anything strange. You're just spooked, he laughed. That guy's probably just sad. Everyone here's got a ghost or two. But the word ghost stuck in my throat like bad gum. That Friday I stayed an hour after my shift and did some digging, city records, local news archives. It didn't take long. October 2007, a drunk driver crashed into the side of the 7-Eleven, killed a 6-year-old girl on impact. Her name was Maria Alvarez. The father survived. His name, Gabriel. I felt dizzy. My hands were shaking on the keyboard. It made too much sense. The photo, the exact spot he always stared at, the same routine. He was reliving the last normal moment of his life, over and over, trying to rewind something that couldn't be done. I started walking slower past the coffee machine, watching that corner, and that's when I heard it. A soft humming, like a lullaby. No words, just a little girl's tune. There was no one there. After I found the article, everything started to feel heavier. The lights flickered more often, but only when Gabriel was nearby. Cold drafts came from nowhere, and that soft humming, it returned like clockwork just before closing, always from the coffee aisle. Customers started noticing too. An older woman asked me one night, "Why is it freezing back there? Feels like the AC's blasting, but it's 60 degrees outside." Didn't know how to answer. I just shrugged and said I'd check it, but I didn't. I couldn't. One night, around 10:12 p.m., I was refilling the sugar packets near the machine when the coffee dispenser kicked on by itself. The cup filled to the brim, steaming. No one around. I backed away slowly. Every hair on my arm stood up. I told myself I was just tired. Maybe I bumped the machine. Maybe there was a short. But it kept happening. Only ever around 9:43 to 10:30. Then came the night Gabriel didn't show. I kept glancing at the door, expecting him to walk in. The clock hit 9:43. Nothing. 9:50. Still nothing. And then, at 10:28, the store phone rang. I answered. Static. Then, underneath the hiss, a small voice. "Is my daddy still there?" I dropped the receiver. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. My chest felt like it was filled with rocks. I couldn't shake the voice. It was so small, so clear, so real. That Monday, I asked my manager for a transfer. No details, just said I needed a different store, different shift. He didn't push. On my last night at Charleston BLVD, I lingered after clocking out, walked past the soda fridge, past the rack of dusty car chargers, to the spot where the girl died. I stood there for a long time. I don't know what I expected, a whisper, a shadow, a face in the glass. But nothing came, until I went outside. Sitting on the curb was the blue hoodie, empty, folded neatly. On top, a Yoo-Hoo bottle and a small pack of Lay's. I sat down next to it, didn't say anything. I just hoped wherever they were, they'd found each other again. I moved across town, Took a day shift in Summerlin. The store there is newer, brighter. More families, fewer ghosts. But sometimes around 9:43 p.m., I find myself looking toward the door. Waiting. Part of me still expects Gabriel to walk in, to nod at me like he used to, hot dog in one hand, yoo-hoo in the other. But he never does. A few weeks after I left Charleston, I ran into an old cashier who'd been there years longer than me. I asked him if he remembered Gabriel. He gave me a long, unreadable look and said, "Gabriel died 3 years ago. Heart attack, right outside the store." I felt cold all over, told him I'd just seen Gabriel, every night for a week. He didn't argue, just shrugged like he'd heard stranger things. "Love's a funny thing," he said. "Sometimes it don't know how to let go. Some grief refuses to leave the places it was born. But love, even haunted, broken love, can linger longer than memory, longer than life. Sometimes the things we think we've lost are still waiting, just outside, where we last left them." Daylight doesn't always feel safe when your brain is wired to expect danger. That used to make me feel like I was broken. Now I know it's called recovery. I'm Deshawn, 29. A year ago I survived a near-fatal crash on I-15. Woke up pinned upside down in my Chevy, smelling spilled gas, blood, and fear. PTSD called itself panic disorder and moved in. Day shifts help, I figured. No drunk drivers to startle me, no dying engines in the dark. So I started part-time at the 7-Eleven on Sunset and Fairfax. 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mostly slow, mostly okay. April 4th, 2022 felt like any other Monday. I restocked bottled water, cleaned glass doors, shifted energy drinks so labels lined up like soldiers. 2 customers came and went, quiet, predictable. So when I saw the red duffel bag near the counter, unremarkable, I assumed a DoorDash driver forgot it. They did that sometimes. Hot bags left unattended while orders weren't picked up until food was ready. I waited. 10 minutes. Nothing. 15. Still nothing. I radioed my manager, Carla. She was in the back office, logging inventory. "Bring it over, Deshawn," she said. "Wrap it up near the register." I did, but something jammed in my chest. The bag was too rigid, too heavy. It didn't slump, and that smell. Earthy. Tinny. Not coffee, not lotion. Something old and sharp. Then I noticed a dark fluid pooling beneath it on the floor tile. It looked like thick motor oil, or worse. My gut flipped back to I-15. To that moment suspended, in my crash, I froze. The whole world locked around me. I called 911 and told the 2 customers calmly, "Guys, step outside. Just for a sec, okay?" They looked at me, concerned, but I wasn't waiting to explain. I pulled the bag far from the register and stepped back. Minutes later, the store filled with uniform. Police, hazmat. Cameras flickered. People hustled in white suits. No one touched anything. They zipped up the bag and evacuated the building. Couldn't breathe without my chest hurting. Lights in my peripheral blanked out. The ground beneath me felt unsteady, like I was back in that Chevy waiting for rescue. And that's when I knew. Daylight hasn't healed me. Fear always finds a way in. They reopened the store in shifts. 1 register, no customers, but kept the bag tucked under the cashier counter. I was still shaken, but they didn't want to lose me. Said I was reliable. At 5 p.m., an official walked me through the paper-taped door to view the bag's contents. In a white van outside, the hazmat team unzipped it. Everyone went quiet. Inside, a severed goat's head wrapped in soaked, blood-spotted newspaper. I remembered the earthy smell, but now with context it locally put something sick inside my stomach. And underneath, 3 Polaroid prints, each showing a child's bedroom. The photos had dark glyphs drawn crudely but deliberately on the walls. Circles, triangles, hashes, odd spirals. No one spoke. The lead cop looked at me. "This looks," he hesitated, "ritualistic." possibly gang-related, but he let it trail off. Nobody saw it come in. They showed me surveillance footage, 2 hours. No one left the store, no bag, no doorbell, just empty space until suddenly it was there, sitting by the register. No figure, no sound. The footage paused on the bag like it had sprouted in place. I felt the panic again. It wasn't just a crime scene, it was a metastasizing fear. The precinct called it a gang ritual to intimidate someone, maybe the owner, maybe a kid who walked in. They dusted for prints, stored the photos and goat head for evidence. But I couldn't sort the symbol shapes or the shadows in those Polaroids. They swirled in my head. Glyphs on walls aren't real walls. Or are they? When I left the van, I avoided the tile where the bag had sat. I didn't want to imagine I could smell it in the grout. That night was a cage. My apartment on Hillcrest Court wasn't home. My daughter was with her dad every Monday nights, and I was grateful. But alone, I relived that bag. Rust-red duffel, sticky fluid, goat head, occult glyphs. I lay on my futon, eyes open. I imagined socks shaking under the door, the sound of slow feet, then a duffel sliding across the kitchen floor into view. I leapt up, switched lights on, paced until my heart quieted at 4 a.m. At work the next day, every customer was a threat. Someone might drop a bag filled with goat parts under my nose. I flinched at every duffel-like silhouette, kept my back to the door, my gaze fixed on the tiles. Co-workers noticed. Carla pulled me aside. "You okay?" she asked. I said I was fine. I just needed time. She offered an extra day off. I accepted. But on the day off, the nightmares came back worse. The bag unzipped itself in my dream. Something crawled out. Hooves rattling, tinny scrape of symbol-scribed walls. A small, childish voice whispering in my ear, "Here." I realized I was carrying something dark inside me. Not the goat's head. My fears. My broken trust. In daylight. A week later, I returned to work. I stuck to stocking water aisles. Stayed away from the register. Daylight shifts felt safe again until mid-shift when the goat bag memories returned like static in my ears. My phone buzzed. Work orders. I took the call with trembling hands. That's when I saw it. Another. Duffel. Purple this time, but same rigid shape. Left by the energy drink fridge. No one in sight. Just a bag wrinkled on the floor. I froze. Walked slowly over. Held my breath. Then I snapped out of it. Rushed to the manager's radio brokered station and said, "Red bag's got a cousin." He came out with gloves. I left. I couldn't do it anymore. I handed in my resignation that evening. I couldn't walk past the register without thinking there'd be a shapeless bag waiting to swallow me whole. A month has passed. No more 7-Eleven shifts. I took on a small gig delivering groceries in Culver City. Daylight still helps. Less exposure to empty lots and faceless bags. But the panic lingers. At home, I sit with my coffee and journal each morning. I breathe. I write out the glyph shapes from those Polaroids. I draw them. It's therapy, and evidence I'm still grounded, that they were real. Some nights, I dream the child's bedroom. I hear faint giggles. I speak aloud in my pillow. Go away, whatever you are. Each morning I wake, scared but alive. That goat head bag might still be part of someone else's life. No idea who they intended to scare, or how. The case is cold, unsolved. But I learned something important. Not all threats crash into your life with whistle and fire. They often arrive silently, packed in plain bags. When fear shows up unannounced, face it early. Don't wait for it to unwrap itself, because escaping pain is possible, but only with daylight, boundaries, and choosing your own narrative. Before the pandemic, I used to mix soundboards for mid-tier bands on the West Coast. I spent nights tuning echoes in half-empty venues, living off free drink tickets and that humming sense of being part of something bigger. Then everything stopped. Tours canceled, contracts dried up. My marriage cracked apart under the weight of unpaid bills and too much silence. Now I stock shelves and run a register at a 7-Eleven on South Las Vegas Boulevard. Graveyard shift. It's not art, but it's work. And work pays child support. For months, I saw the same old man sitting on a flattened cardboard box by our dumpster. Long gray coat, boots with no soles, and this leather photo wallet he clutched like it held the last piece of his name. He never begged, never spoke to customers, just sat there whispering to the air. The younger employees called him trash, prophet. They laughed whenever he mumbled things like, "The wires are too loud tonight," or "The coffee pot's watching again." I never laughed. When you've slept in your car and counted coins for gas, you recognize something behind the eyes of someone who's been forgotten by the world. Then came October 28th. It was a Saturday night, 8:44 p.m. Business was slow. Just the buzz of neon and the scent of reheated hot dogs lingering in the air. That night, for the first time ever, the old man stepped through the front door. He didn't buy anything. He walked straight up to the counter, placed a crumpled dollar and coins on the register, looked me in the eye and said, "Don't open tomorrow." That's all. No smile, no explanation. Just turned around and limped out like gravity had grown heavier just for him. I stood there for a full minute. Then I muttered, "You okay, man?" But he was already halfway down the sidewalk, head low like a shadow pulling itself home. It felt like he'd dropped something heavy inside me, something I didn't know how to carry. I told my manager, Rachel, about the old man's warning during her check-in at 10. She rolled her eyes. "Weirdos all over Vegas," she said, checking her phone. "He probably thinks the apocalypse starts at midnight, let it go." But I couldn't. Something about the way he said it. It wasn't frantic. It was calm, resigned, like he knew what was coming and didn't need me to believe him. Around 2 a.m. I started hearing a noise from the back room. Not the normal humming. This was clicking, like a toy wind-up car revving every few seconds. Rhythmic, electrical. I followed it, to the walk-in cooler. The air felt wrong, warmer than usual. I opened the door and saw a faint blue spark flickering behind the shelves of milk. The condenser fan. A single wire had wriggled loose and was brushing up against the steel frame. Tiny arcs of electricity danced like fireflies behind a prison fence. I unplugged it fast, heart pounding. I logged the issue and left a sticky note for the morning shift. It didn't look serious, but the smell of burning plastic lingered in the air longer than it should have. Later, when I clocked out, I stood at the front door and looked toward the alley. No sign of the old man. Just empty sidewalk and the yellow glow of street lamps bouncing off the concrete like ghostlight. I drove home in silence, radio off. The next morning, the news hit. A 7-Eleven in Paradise Hills caught fire around 3:40 a.m. Faulty cooler wiring. Clerk trapped in the back room. Smoke inhalation. Died before first responders arrived. Her name was Lena, 24, same cooler model as ours. I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone for 10 minutes straight, just replaying it all in my head. If I hadn't unplugged ours. On October 29th, I arrived an hour early for my shift. I couldn't sit at home anymore. The whole day I kept looking down the alley. No old man, no cardboard bed, just a patch of crushed leaves and the faint stench of rot coming from the dumpster. I went next door to the pizza joint. Their night guy, Marco, used to give him leftovers. "Hey, you seen the guy who sleeps out back? Wears a coat, has a photo. Wallet?" Marco looked at me confused. "Lester?" "Yeah, Lester, I guess." He paused. "Man, Lester died last year, hit by a semi crossing Tropicana. You didn't hear?" "No, I talked to him yesterday," I said, already feeling ridiculous. Marco frowned. "He's been gone since like last October." I just stood there. When I got back to work, I asked Rachel to help me check our cameras from the previous night. She was skeptical, but I insisted. We pulled up the footage. There he was, on the sidewalk in previous weeks, sitting quietly. Fast forwarded, he looked like a fixture of the building. Wind moved around him like he didn't belong to. But when the footage hit 8:44 p.m. on October 28th, the moment I remember so clearly, the screen glitched, froze, then resumed. No door open, no one at the counter, no coins, just me staring at the entrance, alone. Rachel looked at me sideways. Maybe you imagined it. I didn't respond, because I knew what I saw. Remembered the weight of that moment, the voice, the coins on the register. I hadn't imagined the fear. The next night, I brought coffee from home and stayed in the office after hours. I couldn't shake it. The hum in the back room, the image of the camera glitch, the fact that another store burned down under almost identical circumstances. I sat down and scribbled everything I could remember in a notebook. The way Lester's hand trembled as he slid the coins over. The exact words, "Don't open tomorrow." Then I remembered the photo wallet. He always held it, always. I went out back and searched the alley for anything. Maybe he dropped it. I didn't expect to find anything. But behind the dumpster, half buried under old receipts and a crushed energy drink box, I saw it. Brown leather, cracked, moldy on one side. I picked it up. Inside were 6 photos. The first 5 were of a young boy at different ages, always holding a harmonica, always smiling. The 6th was a black and white shot of the same boy, older, slumped beside a burned-out building. Police. Tape in the background, a 7-Eleven sign half melted above his head. On the back of that photo, scribbled in marker, "Listen to the wires. They always warn you." I put the wallet in my locker. Some truths don't need to be shared, only remembered. Now when I work, I keep an ear on the hum. Always. I've learned the difference between normal sounds and warning sounds. Electrical hums are like heartbeats. They change when something's wrong. A few weeks ago, I heard the clicking again. Not loud, but steady. I walked straight to the back and sure enough, another wire, same cooler, loosening again. I called it in. No one got hurt. Lester hasn't come back. Not in dreams, not in alleys, not in glitched footage. But I believe he wasn't trying to scare me. He was trying to stop a repeat of his own story. I think that burned out 7-Eleven in his photo was the one where his son died. I think he carried that truth until his body failed, but maybe something deeper in him refused to let the message die. He didn't talk to everyone, just to me. And maybe that's how it works. We don't always get to choose when we're closest to the fire, but sometimes we get one last chance to stop someone else from being burned. Some warnings come wrapped in static and strangeness, but they're still warnings. Whether they come from a living voice or something left behind, pay attention to the quiet ones, especially the ones who've already been through the fire. Before any of this happened, my life was already running on fumes. I was 28, living in a sublet studio in Minneapolis with thin walls and thicker bills. My morning started at 5 a.m. every day without fail. I worked at a cramped coffee shop on Lyndale Avenue, one of those local joints where the espresso machine wheezed louder than the customers complained. 6 hours on my feet grinding beans, then I'd sprint 3 blocks to change shirts in the back of my car before starting my second job, delivery driver for a flower shop. I worked until 8 p.m. most nights. It wasn't sustainable, but it was survival. Rent had just gone up by $150. My car needed new brakes. I hadn't eaten a full meal in days. Breakfast was coffee I made wrong on purpose so I could dump it by mistake and drink it myself. Lunch was peanuts or string cheese, if I could snag some from the barista fridge. Dinner? Usually didn't happen. April 19th, 2023 was just like any other Wednesday. I got off my morning shift and had 20 minutes before deliveries started. I was dizzy, tired, and desperate for something that didn't taste like cardboard. That's when I walked into the 7-Eleven on Lyndale Avenue. I didn't even think. I just grabbed a turkey sandwich from the cooler, those vacuum-packed ones in plastic triangles. I got a Sprite too, all paid for with the last $7.04 in my checking account. I took the first bite before I left the store. Cold, bland, but real food. I devoured half of it by the time I reached the parking lot, tossed the rest on the passenger seat and started the van. Didn't feel weird at first, but a few hours later, I wished I had just stayed hungry. The first wave hit during my second delivery of the day. I was halfway up 31st Street, about to drop a bouquet off at a birthday party. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I'd been punched. I pulled over fast, barely got the door open in time before I vomited. Not just stomach bile, blood, bright red and hot like battery acid. I stumbled onto the sidewalk, vision swimming. Everything tilted. My legs gave out beneath me. I remember trying to knock on a door and a woman's voice screaming before it all went dark. When I woke up, I was in an ER bed. My throat burned. My clothes smelled like chemicals. A nurse with tired eyes told me they had pumped my stomach and given me fluids. Then the doctor came in, flipping through a clipboard like he'd seen 100 people just like me. Food poisoning, he said, but not your typical kind. There's evidence of chemical burns in your esophagus. Chemical, I croaked. Like, what kind of chemical? Something you'd find in cleaning products, he said, nonchalant. The sandwich was the only thing I'd eaten all day. I told them that. I begged them to test the wrapper, check the label. But it was chaos in the ER. Overworked staff, underpaid hours. They just gave me anti-nausea pills and a discharge form. I left the hospital weak, sore, and very alone. That night, I found the sandwich half still in my van. It was soaked in condensation, but under the cheese, there was a greenish smudge I hadn't noticed before. Mold, something worse, and the seal, no factory vacuum, just clear tape. Tucked and smoothed like someone had resealed it by hand. That was the moment I knew. Something wasn't right. I returned to the 7-Eleven the next day, sandwich bag in hand. There was a different guy behind the counter, college-aged, bored-looking. I asked to speak with the manager. After 10 minutes, a man in a gray polo came out. He looked like he'd just woken up from a nap he didn't want to take. I bought this sandwich here yesterday, I said. It made me seriously sick. I ended up in the ER. I think something was wrong with it. He raised an eyebrow, then glanced at the Ziploc bag. That packaging doesn't look like ours, he said casually. Exactly, I shot back. It looks like someone tampered with it. Look at the tape. He didn't. He just shrugged. They come sealed from our supplier. If someone messed with it, it wasn't here. Can I check the security footage, just to see when it was stocked? His answer was too quick. Footage resets every 24 hours unless there's a police report. That sentence was a wall. I stood there, heart racing, waiting for him to offer anything, an apology, a report form, some way to help. But he just looked at me like I was another Karen on TikTok, like I was wasting his time. So I left. Still sick, still broke, with a sandwich bag full of evidence and nowhere to go. I missed the rest of my work week. Between the hospital bill, my jobs, strict policy on sick days, and my car being out of commission, I couldn't pay rent. My roommate gave me a week's notice to move out. No hard feelings, he said. He just needed the room. I moved in with a friend. Slept on a pull-out couch next to a German Shepherd that barked every time I shifted. Every night I stared at the ceiling and wondered what would have happened if I'd finished that sandwich. I sent emails to 7-Eleven corporate, filled out complaint forms, attached hospital paperwork, sent photos of the moldy meat and the tape-sealed plastic. No reply. 2 weeks passed. Then one night, at 1:07 a.m., my phone buzzed. Blocked number. Text message. You shouldn't have said anything. It was meant for someone else. No context. No name. Just that one line. My stomach dropped. Not from fear. From the awful feeling that maybe somehow I wasn't the only target, or maybe I wasn't the target at all. I stared at that message for an hour. Then I saved the sandwich wrapper in a freezer bag, sealed tight, marked with the date and time. It still sits in my friend's freezer behind the frozen peas, because someday if this happens to someone else, maybe they'll listen. Now it's been over a year. I never got a reply from corporate, never got an apology, never got $1 back. But I still have that wrapper, and I still flinch every time I pass a gas station cooler. I've changed jobs since. I drive part-time now and work evenings at a diner where I make minimum wage but get free soup and trust the fridge. That's enough. Sometimes I replay everything in my head, the sandwich, the burn in my throat, the text. What if someone meant to poison a regular customer? What if it was a delivery gone wrong? Some sick joke? Or maybe just someone sloppy in the supply chain? I'll never know. But the silence from 7-Eleven told me everything I needed to hear. They don't care who it was meant for. So now I speak about it. Quietly. To friends. To coworkers. And I never eat anything that comes sealed with tape. When you're at your most desperate, your instincts are all you've got. Listen to them. No brand or barcode will ever protect you the way your own gut can, especially when something tastes just a little too wrong to finish. I never thought I'd end up working late nights at a 7-Eleven, but life doesn't always follow your art school dreams. I'm Alina, 24, dropped out of art school after my anxiety ate my scholarship. Now I share a tiny Lincoln Avenue apartment with 2 roommates, trying to pay rent without burning out. I picked the night shift because I'm quieter at night. Less skin in conversations, more room to breathe. Funny how that works. My manager, Donnie, started around the same time I did. From day one, something about him felt off. He'd stand just a hair too close when discussing shift schedules. His gaze lingered when I straightened up from stocking chips. He'd ask, "You got a boyfriend?" Like he was making casual talk, but the way he said it always made my heart beat faster. Not a good kind of fast. I wasn't the only one who noticed. Lexi, the evening cashier, told me once she felt like she was being watched even when she was alone inside the storeroom. On smoke breaks behind the dumpster, we whispered about, Is it just us? Is he always watching? His change in mood whenever I moved near his office door felt heavy, menacing. Weeks passed like that. Anxiety gnawed at me. A shift here, a shift there, and I found myself flinching anytime he entered the back room. The worst nights were when I closed, just me, the hum of fridges, and Donnie's steps in the fluorescent glow. I started carrying pepper spray clipped to my apron even though I didn't want to believe I needed it. But fear has a way of demanding action. I kept hoping I was wrong, that maybe it was just nerves. But there were moments, tiny, visceral moments, when I felt like I was living in someone else's home, someone else's story. I didn't know then what would change everything, until the night in the storeroom happened. And that made him real. One night in July, the store was quiet, just the low hum of the coffee machine and the regular hum of neon. I was finishing inventory in the storeroom alone. I heard the lock click behind me. My stomach dropped. Donnie. He didn't help stock. He never came back here. So when I saw him, leaning in the doorway, smiling too wide, my blood ran cold. "Donnie, what are you doing?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just thought," he said, stepping forward with a strange calm, "we should talk without all the cameras for once." I tried to smile and backed away toward the door, but he stepped toward me, silent, too close. Suddenly, the back emergency exit door with a loud bam. It rattled the sheets of inventory on the shelves. Donnie cursed and turned, rush walking out as if he was late for something more important. He didn't look back. I stood frozen for a full minute, listening to my heart pound in the silence of the storeroom. Then I unlocked the door and ran, breath shaking, hands trembling as I found Lexi in the break room. We exchanged wide-eyed looks. I told her what happened. She nodded, pale. Just an inch closer to the doorway could have been much worse. We went upstairs together and called HR that night. We filed complaints. We tried to be calm. We were told they'd investigate. HR said no fewer than 24 hours. "Hang tight," they said. And for a moment we thought it was over. But that night I couldn't breathe. I lay awake wondering who pulled that door, why, And what would have happened if no one came? 2 nights after Donnie was let go, the store felt different. Emptier, colder. I took longer to close, rechecked locks, and made sure the back door actually latched. I thought I was safe. Then I looked up through the front window. Across Lincoln Avenue, under a bus bench, stood a tall figure in a gray hoodie, motionless, watching. He blended into the shadows until my flashlight hit him. Then he ducked behind the bench and disappeared. My legs vanished under me. I stepped outside and called, "Hey, you good?" Nothing. Wind stirred. The bench remained empty. Inside, I found Lexi's eyes, drawn to the same spot. She shook her head. "You saw him too," she whispered. That night I left with my heart in my throat. I didn't speed, but I didn't look back. It happened again. Another shift. Another night. Figure under streetlight on the corner, watching. I pointed. Ran inside. The next dawn, my roommate picked me up and we saw it together. Man under flickering streetlight. Hoodie, still, watching. We squealed like kids and peeled out before I could connect fear to whoever he might be. I switched stores. Asked HR for a transfer. They said filters had changed, Donnie moved, no records on new suspect. They painted it like it was over, but I knew it wasn't, because he didn't follow me home. He just waited. Months passed. I left that 7-Eleven for another across town. It was newer, brighter, with more traffic, and fewer shadows to hide behind. I felt safe, but my nights were still heavy. Part of me was always looking out windows, counting reflections. I'd catch something out of the corner of my eye and freeze. I carried pepper spray in my coat and in the front pocket of my apron. A habit, a lifeline. Once I thought I saw someone with a gray hood near the drive-up. My entire body locked. I dropped everything and ran out. It was a customer, a man in a hoodie buying Slurpee. But my pulse didn't calm until I pulled my apron off and locked the break room door. My roommates didn't get it. They said I was shaken up. Maybe therapy, they suggested gently. I thought they were right. So I started seeing someone. We talked about boundaries, triggers, and safety. It helped, but didn't fix everything. How do you fix your gut? I stopped looking out at the parking lot. I focused on shelves, registry lights, and end-of-shift tasks. But every time a customer lingered near the windows after closing, every time a car idled outside, I felt that old breach of safety flicker back. I'm still learning how not to flinch. Overall, life is quieter now. I'm back in art classes, photography this time. I'm rebuilding with slower steps. I still work nights, but now I pair with a friend. We share shifts and make sure we close together, or we don't close at all. HR finally confirmed Donnie. Moved out of state, but there's no paper trail for the hoodie guy. No charges, no sightings, no evidence. I'll admit, sometimes when I pass that old store, I still think I see him under the streetlight. A twitch in the corner, a silhouette, hanging just past the gas pumps. But I keep walking too fast to look back. I learned something important. Fear is real, not make-believe. And when your gut screams, listen. Pepper spray is useful. So is switching shifts and talking to someone. But boundaries matter most. Physical and mental lines you draw for yourself. I used to fear confrontation. Now I know it's sometimes the only way to survive. Trust your instincts, even when no one else does. Stay within your boundaries. Take control of your space. And respect your own safety. Because sometimes the danger doesn't come through the door. It waits outside until you feel unsafe anywhere. People think night shifts are peaceful, quiet, easy money. They don't understand what 2 a.m. at a 7-Eleven really feels like. It's not peace. It's like time slows down, like the air itself gets heavier. It's a mix of too much caffeine, a flickering soda machine, and the kind of silence that makes you feel like the world forgot about you. My name's Jonah. 27, $38,000 in student loans, and a psych degree I've never used. I moved to Mesa, Arizona for a fresh start, or at least that's what I told myself. I ended up managing the graveyard shift at a gas station, counting scratcher ticket rolls and trying not to let my thoughts win. The night of June 21st, 2023 started like every other. I'd stacked the hot dog rollers, prepped the coffee, and adjusted the security monitor so I could see both entrances. I remember it was 102 degrees outside even after midnight, and the store smelled like synthetic lemon mixed with old plastic. The ceiling fan was off balance again. It gave off this ticking sound like a slow metronome for anxiety. At 2:11 a.m., the bell above the door rang. She ran in barefoot. Young, maybe 19. Pale. Tears streaked through dirt on her cheeks. Her knees were scraped like she'd fallen hard on asphalt. She bolted straight to the counter, grabbed it like it was the only thing keeping her on earth, and gasped out, "Someone's following me." Before I could even say anything, she spun and ran straight to the back of the store, locking herself in the restroom. I stood there stunned. I didn't even catch her name. Just heard the bolt click from inside and the sound of her sobbing through the door. And then, silence. Total silence. I looked outside through the front glass. The street was empty. No traffic, no footsteps, not even the hum of a distant car. Just trash blowing across Main Street, illuminated by the dim orange glow of the parking lot lights. That's when I started to feel something was wrong. Not wrong in a bad day kind of way. Wrong like the world was tipping and I hadn't noticed until just now. 5, maybe 6 minutes later, the bell above the door rang again. That soft, cheerful chime suddenly felt like a warning bell. A guy walked in, early 30s maybe, taller than me, heavy boots, hood pulled low. His hands stayed in his pockets. He didn't look at me, didn't say a word. He just started walking up and down the aisles, slow, almost rhythmic. From the energy drinks to the freezer, then back again, like he was searching for something or maybe waiting for it. I cleared my throat. "Hey, you good, man? Need help with something?" Nothing. He didn't even flinch, just kept pacing. Eventually, he wandered toward the back of the store. I followed a few steps behind, trying to stay cool, but everything inside me was screaming. He stopped at the restroom door, tried the handle, locked. And then he stood there, not knocking, not calling out, just standing completely still, facing the door like he could hear something on the other side. The way he stood, it was wrong, not impatient, not curious. It felt predatory, like he wasn't just expecting her to come out, like he knew she wouldn't, and was fine waiting until something else did. I stepped closer, tried to act calm. "She's not feeling well," I said, voice shaking just slightly. "Police are on their way." That made him move. Not fast, not scared, just a simple turn and slow walk to the exit. He didn't say anything, just pushed the door open and walked into the night, vanishing down Main Street like he'd never been there. When the cops arrived 6 minutes later, I gave them everything I had and descriptions, what she'd said, how he acted. We knocked on the restroom door together. An officer called out, "Ma'am, Mesa PD, he's gone now, you can come out." No response. He knocked again. Still nothing. They asked for my keys and I handed them over, hoping she hadn't passed out or worse. They unlocked the door, and what we saw made my breath catch. The restroom was empty. There was no window, no back door, no crawl space or vent big enough for a person. The tiles were undisturbed. The air was still. Just the hum of that old flickering fluorescent light above the mirror, and the faint sterile scent of lemon cleaning spray. It didn't make sense. She hadn't come out. She couldn't have come out. I knew every corner of that store and I'd worked there for almost a year. There was nowhere she could have gone. The officer looked at me, more annoyed than spooked. "You sure she went in here?" I nodded. I watched her, locked the door from inside. He frowned and stepped in. "Well, she's not here now." But I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at the mirror. Written across it, in smudged, red lipstick were the words, "He's not outside anymore." I took a step back, my throat tightened. I wanted to say something, but nothing came out. The cop saw it too. "Did you write that?" I shook my head. They took a photo, made some notes, asked me again about the girl, her appearance, what she said, if I knew her name. I didn't. She never told me. They took the security footage and left. And I just stood there, inside the store that had suddenly gone colder, as if the air conditioning finally started working. Only it hadn't. 2 days later, a detective came back and played the footage with me. We watched it on the little screen in the back office. There she was, barefoot, scared, running into the store and darting to the restroom, clear as day. A few minutes later, he entered. The pacing, the door check, and then something strange. In the reflection of the freezer glass as he paced, there was something else, a shape, not hers. Something tall and crooked like a shadow but darker, moving behind the coolers. But when we checked the footage from other angles, that shape wasn't there, just the freezer reflection. I asked the detective, "You see that?" He didn't answer at first, just stared, then said, "Footage must have glitched." But his eyes said otherwise. When the man walked out, that shape in the reflection followed him, but not out the door. It just faded as he stepped outside. They never saw her leave, and they never figured out who the man was. I stayed 2 more weeks, only because I needed the money. But something changed in me. Every night, I heard faint whispers from the back. The restroom door would swing open on its own, even locked. One night, I swear I heard sobbing. That was my last shift. It's been a year since I quit. Sometimes I drive past the 7-Eleven just to see if it's still there. And it always is. Standing like a quiet trap, still lit under those flickering lights. They remodeled the restroom after a pipe burst last winter. New door, new tiles, new mirror. But I still wonder if whatever was there is still there, just waiting for someone new to lock the door. Mesa PD still lists her as a missing person. No leads, no updates. Sometimes I think about what she said when she ran in. Someone's following me. And I wonder if she meant him, or something else entirely. I stopped trying to understand what happened, because the truth is, the desert keeps its secrets, buried deep, like bones no one wants to find. But there's one thing I know for sure. Every time I lock a door behind me now, I check the mirror twice. Sometimes the thing you're running from isn't outside. Sometimes it's already inside. And once it finds a door, it doesn't always leave. Trust your instincts, believe the scared, and never ignore what you feel in your gut, especially at 2 a.m.